chapter 22. When last we left off, Charles Chiltington had found a clue in the book In the Pocket, Johnny Unitas and Me. And Kyle had earned the super duper bonus clue when he saved Haley Daly from the book drop slot that, even though it's an exit to the building, wasn't big enough for a person. So, on to chapter 22. Oh man, that was dumb. Haley could not believe how idiotic she had been. Trying to climb out of the book return slot, like that was gonna work. She was giving herself a good talking to as she trudged up the steps to the first floor. When she entered the rotunda, she saw Charles Chiltington slipping into the lobby again. Chiltington was a snake. Is he actually a snake? If he's like a snake, we call that a simile. But if we just say Charles Chiltington was a snake, then what we're doing in that case is a metaphor. And a metaphor is where you just say what something is. Worse, a garden slug. There's another metaphor. If we say like a garden slug, then that's a simile. But if we just say he is a garden slug, we're using a metaphor. Maybe a leech. Something oily and slimy that left a greasy trail and liked to mooch off of other people's ideas. That's why Chiltington had tailed the twin library nerds, Peckelman and Fernandez, upstairs last night during the dessert hunt. Haley was smart enough to know that Chiltington was trying to steal those geeks' ideas. Actually, Haley was a lot smarter than anybody, except maybe her teachers and whoever scored her IQ test, than anybody knew. See, with certain people, mainly grown-ups and silly boys, pretending to be a ditzy princess made getting what she wanted a lot easier. But what she wanted right now was money. Lots of money. Her dad had been out of work for nearly a year. They'd run through all their rainy day savings. You know what that means, rainy day savings? That's the money you save in case something ever bad happens. So when we think of a rainy day, we think of a rainy day as not being a very good day. So your rainy day savings is the money that you save for if something is not very good. So her dad hadn't been working and they'd used all their money. They had to borrow from their relatives and in-laws. So what Haley wants is she wants to win the money. And even though we might think that's not a very nice thing, does it seem like maybe Haley has a good reason for wanting to win this money? If Haley could win this competition and become Mr. Lemoncello's spokesmodel, her family's money woes would be over. And they wouldn't have to sell their home. Once other people saw her on TV for Lemoncello's games, they'd want her in commercials too, and movies, and maybe her own sitcom, something on the Disney Channel. But for all that to happen, Haley needed a winning idea, and fast. Something better than crawl through the library slot that's not wide enough for your wrist. Maybe she should flush herself down the toilet and escape through the sewers, like Charles did in that video game. She headed over to the Book Nook Cafe so she could sit down and think. Do you think escaping through the sewer, through the toilet's a good idea?
No.
She stepped into the room and checked out the snack table. There were trays of cookies, strawberries, bananas, and brownies. Sitting down to nibble on a macaroon, she studied the row of cookbooks displayed on the bookshelves lining the walls. One particular one caught her eyes. Cupcakes, cookies, and pie. Oh my! Because the cover looked extremely familiar, two googly-eyed sheep made out of chocolate-frosted cakes with gobs of mini marshmallows for fleece, Haley had seen the cover before. In the lobby. Wait, it was in the glass case of the memorable reads by the library staff. She went over to the shelf and she picked up the book. When she opened it, she discovered two cards. One was a 4x4 piece of white cardboard with the black silhouette of a sheep on it. I think we have another clue.
A another one.
But what does it mean?
Maybe the shape that.
The second card was yellow and the same size as a community chest card in the game of Monopoly. Haley sniffed the card. It smelled like lemons. Wait, has that happened before? Who else found a card that smelled like lemons?
Kyle.
On one side of the yellow card was printed, Super Duper Bonus Clue.
That's what. She probably got the same exact.
On the other side was the clue. Your marvelous memory has earned you even more memories. Proceed to the Lemoncello Abilia room. Look for item number 12. Haley slid both cards in the pocket of her jeans, pulled out her library floor plan, and found the Lemoncello Mobilia room. It was up on the 3rd floor. Making certain that nobody, i.e. Charles Chiltington, was following her, Haley quietly dashed up the spiral staircase to the 2nd floor. Checking for Chilton one more time, she tiptoed to the 13th floor. She found the room labeled Lemoncello Mobilia, mini museum of personally interesting and somewhat quirky junk. Do you know what quirky means?
It's like
Bad.
a disgusting junk.
It's not really disgusting, it's kind of goofy or silly. Quirky is, well, some people might call it a little weird. She saw one labeled 576 because there were cardboard boxes stacked like a storage warehouse. Guess Mr. Lemoncello never throws anything away, Haley remarked as she looked for number 12 mentioned on the bonus card. Weaving her way through the stacks in the columns, she found the super duper bonus. Item number 12 was an old boot box from an Alexandriaville shoe store Haley had never heard of. Someone had taped the label on the lid. Paraphernalia, that's another word for stuff. Accoutrements, that means another word for like side stuff. And doodads, another word for stuff. From Mr. Lemoncello's 12th year. 12 kids, 12 years old, his 12th year box of stuff. Haley lifted the lid. The box was filled with all sorts of confusing knickknacks. Hand-whittled prototypes for game pieces, a star-spangled red, white, and blue HHH Humphrey button, a battered clasp envelope sealed with tons of tape. Someone had scribbled, "First and worst idea ever," on the front of the envelope with a magic marker. There were also a few pennants from Disneyland and a rubber-banded stack of cartoon cards with something called wacky packages. The card on top was Wiki's Breakfast of Chumps. Do you want to be a chump? Is that a good thing? Do you want to eat a breakfast for weak kids? That doesn't sound like a good idea, does it? Haley knew that this box had to be an important clue. But why? She had absolutely no idea.